Does Slime Season 3 get better? Is Season 3 worth watching? Does the meaningless yapping ever stop? Was this just a glorified furniture commercial? Let's attempt to answer these questions as we take a look back into Slime Season 3. To put it bluntly, your enjoyment of this season depends on what you're looking for, and also a lot of your tolerance to long, meandering, dragged out, inconsequential yapping. To me, this season of Slime does get better in the second Cour, however, I can still see how it would put off a lot of people, so let's break it down, starting off with Cour 1. For the first Cour, I don't want to reiterate a video that I've already made, so long story short, this show commits the cardinal sin of entertainment shows, which is, it was boring. You can be bad, you can be campy, you can be good, you can be a masterpiece, but you have to make the show entertaining and engaging in some way for people to watch. You can, in these longer series, buy some goodwill from the fans where they are already invested in your characters, and also where they can tolerate a bit of boring exposition because they are hopeful at the epic moments yet to come. However, in Slime Season 3, I'm still waiting for the epic moments because they just never came. After so much tedious and meaningless yapping, the main storyline of Cour 1 ended with one-sided fights in front of journalists? Journalists in my power fantasy isekai? When did we even establish that they had such an importance in this world? It just felt so deflating. Cour 1 essentially scammed its audience into watching what feels like a bad filler arc, and people will say it's not filler, this was in the novels, and to that I say that if there was ever a time to cut content from the light novels to make an adaptation with better pacing that flows smoother, then this is example number 1. After I made my video addressing the problems in the first Cour of Slime Season 3, some Slime fans replied with either A, I don't like talking, I only want to see action, or B, this is just what slime is like, why are you surprised? And both of these statements are completely false, that's gaslighting. Dialogue-heavy anime can be great. Some of my favorite anime ever have a lot of talking. Some of my favorite anime scenes ever are just two characters talking. When yapping is done right, exposition feels smooth as it's interweaved seamlessly in the dialogue and it feels like something the characters would actually say. And also, usually the dialogue talks about things that the audience is interested in or that the author makes the audience be interested in. The whole Falmouth storyline in the first Cour was beyond boring. It had a very anticlimactic ending, so you feel disappointed that all that talking pretty much amounted to nothing, and as I feared, in the grand scheme of things, the storyline just doesn't seem to matter that much. The Falmouth storyline felt extremely flat because they made no effort for the audience to care. They literally went against the principle of show don't tell, and we got to see why that principle exists. I've watched the entirety of Season 3 and I still feel like I know very little about Falmouth or what goes on there, and compare it for example with Mushoku Tensei, another isekai. Whenever you think of a location in Mushoku, you can see the scenery, you can think of a building, you know what the culture is like, perhaps you even reminisce about some soundtrack about that place. I'm actually praising Mushoku Tensei on video just for you to see how desperate I am for me to get this point across. They could have had, for example, a filler episode centered around Yom's point of view, where they do a lot of the exposition instead of doing it in a boring fashion, sitting around the table with very little animation, doing nothing, and it could be something fresh, using a character that the audience is already familiar with and is perhaps invested in, instead of the boring Yap Fest that we had. A lot of what was talked about ended up being either not important or very quickly forgotten. For example, if you watch Slime Season 3, tell me right now the name of the evil king's brother. Unless you are in the top 1% of Slime fans or something, you likely don't remember, nor should you, because in the grand scheme of things he was irrelevant. So why did we waste so much time talking about him? And I'll be honest, I don't usually get emotionally attached to comments for my own sanity, and also just for you to know, the very nasty comments don't show up on the YouTube dashboard, so if you've ever sent a mean comment to someone, it's very likely that someone didn't see it. Still, I have to highlight this comment because it just triggered my particular sensibilities, where this commenter, in an attempt to perhaps highlight that I don't like dialogue or something, compared Vinland Saga Season 2 to the meandering mess that is Slime Season 3, and what? Surely this is not a real opinion that is held by someone that is living. Surely we have eyes and ears and we can understand the difference between one of the best character developments, I wouldn't even say that, one of the best seasons of anime ever, to Slime Season 3 and sitting around the table for episodes on end talking about nothing. Surely we can easily understand the difference in execution between the two. I don't want to put anyone on blast, I just thought the comparison was so ridiculous that it was super funny. Now, back to the earlier point, the second common defense is this is just what slime is like, bro, and that is not completely false, but in my view it's a bit bad faith and quite misleading because we judge an anime based off what the anime is, not what happens later in the light novel. For novel readers, yes, perhaps the later arcs in Slime have a lot of talking. I haven't read the light novels, but I'll trust you on that one, that's fine. However, to pretend that Slime was always like this is gaslighting of the highest order, because might I remind you, Season 1 was all over the place. In fact, it was one of the points that made it so entertaining. Homie got reincarnated, he met a dragon, he met goblins, he fought direwolves, he went to the Dwarven Kingdom, he met Chizu, he fought the Orc Lord, he went all over the forest talking with different types of monsters. It was all over the place and it was glorious. A lot of things happened. At no point did we have 5 straight episodes of sitting around the table talking about nothing. So when people say this is what slime is like, I think they mean this is what slime is like moving forward, which I don't think it's a great story pivot. I'm very much less excited after watching this season than I was on the previous 2. So now let's shift gears and talk about something positive. In my opinion, the second Cour was much better. The main problems that I mentioned of talking about things and not showing them, and talking about things the audience is not interested in, are addressed in the festival arc. We have many scenes in the dungeon where we get to see what Rimuru and the gang are cooking up, and these scenes are quite fun. In fact, if you start watching Slime, then you're likely a fan of fantasy, so these dungeon building scenes should be right up your alley. Not only do we tackle a lot of entertaining fantasy elements, we also get to see a lot of developments from characters we already know. For example, Veldora finally gets to release his load after holding it in for so long. The dungeon and the festival are much more entertaining to the audience because they involve the main characters that we are already familiar with and that the audience actually cares about. And the rulers and world leaders that are introduced or reintroduced to the story are also much more impressive. They feel hyped up, they feel like a big deal, and some of them even have familial connections with some of our main characters, so that is quite interesting. And seeing little character moments like Veldora working at the food stall is fun. It's the type of campiness that I had been waiting for in this season. Having said all this, if you haven't actually watched the season, I will just say that if you're hyped up for the tournament does not necessarily deliver in terms of quality of fights, perhaps not in the epic, bombastic way that you're hoping for. However, I will say, to me, I thought the storyline was very funny. It reminded me of some of the humor that we see in other series, for example in Overlord. I thought it was fun, but I can see how it could displease or disappoint some people. While I did think the second Cour was much stronger, there is one thing that worries me and almost makes me hesitant to jump into the light novel because, yes, spoilers, after finishing ReZero and Overlord, Slime was one of the light novels I was keeping my eye on as perhaps the next one in line, but now I'm not so sure. From what we've seen in Season 3, I don't think that the political storylines have been the most engaging, and that's because they're quite lacking in stakes and tension. If we break it down at the most fundamental level, in order for a story to be interesting, it needs some kind of narrative tension, some kind of conflict, and yes, there are exceptions to this, I'll get to in a bit, but usually you need something like the hero fights the dragon to save the princess, or the friends argue and are in conflict with each other, the traveler faces some unforeseen problem. You need some sort of narrative tension for the story to be interesting. And my main issue with the politics in Slime Season 3 is that there is very little tension. Things just seem to resolve themselves incredibly smoothly. The position of Tempest in the political landscape of this world is that it is a geographical, technological, and military superpower, and Rimuru is a very nice guy who does not finish last. Good for him. So from the other nation's perspective, to be adversarial towards Tempest is not only incredibly ill-advised, it is also incredibly stupid, because it is dangerous, and also Rimuru is very easy to negotiate with. He's very easy to get along because he just wants to have good relations with everybody. This makes it so that every negotiation feels incredibly smooth, because why would it not? And obviously I haven't read the light novels, I'm assuming at some point there will be some big mini country to cause some big international conflict with Tempest, I'm assuming that's where the story is going, but for now everything feels a little bit too easy. And I think the problem with everything feeling too easy is that we are wasting a lot of potential for good, very interesting storylines. For example, imagine if even inside Tempest we had different factions vying for power and they had different ideas of what they want for the nation, which is not a crazy imaginative idea or anything, because it's literally what happens in real life, in real countries. Let's say some people are devoted to Rimuru, some think that he's bringing too much change to the forest, some perhaps do not trust him completely after he revealed that he was a human, perhaps making him too biased. Seeing Rimuru handle these types of factions would be very interesting to watch. And for the other countries, let's say that Rimuru gets along with the dwarves, but the dwarves do not get along with country X. But Rimuru needs to negotiate with country X because of some sort of resource that he wants. How will he handle these negotiations? Will he try to please everyone without pissing off other people? This would be quite compelling. Something like this done well would essentially be high fantasy Game of Thrones, and perhaps one of the best anime ever if well executed, and obviously I don't have that expectation for Slime, that those are big shoes to fill, right? But still, I can't help but think that there is a lot of wasted potential here. Surely with this varied cast and the various species of monsters that we have in this show, we could have more complex political intrigue than simply some scheming is going on behind the scenes and Rimuru quickly dismantles it. And now we are back, all happy together, eating sushi. Put the sashimi in your mouth, you will like it. Sometimes series don't need a lot of narrative tension, sometimes you just want something cozy to watch, and Slime fulfills that purpose perfectly. We just want to see some colorful fantasy monsters enjoying Japanese culture, and sometimes that's just enough. What Slime is fine, but I think with the potential that it had and the momentum that it had after season 2, this season can feel a bit underwhelming. So I know that I'm giving a lot of mixed vibes here, and the internet does not like nuance. They want, do you hate or do you love? Duh! And to answer the question, did I like Slime Season 3? I thought the first half was excruciatingly boring and the payoff wasn't worth it, and to be honest I only pushed forward because I wanted to see the dungeon and the festival arc, and the second half was much better. I don't regret watching it, but I think that Rimuru and Tempest as a whole have reached a point in the story where everything feels like it has very few stakes and not a lot of narrative tension, as I talked about. So I hope to be wrong, because obviously I haven't read the web novels, I don't know where this is going, but I do hope that the high point of the drama and tension in Slime isn't season 2. I hope there's more to come. Once I flipped the switch in my brain to watch Slime as the cozy slice of life isekai, I enjoyed it a lot more. I had a few laughs, I had a few smiles. I don't think that even the second half was too eventful. I thought it was entertaining, but middle of the pack. Overall, it's a mid-season. So let me know what you think of Slime Season 3 if you watched it. Am I being too harsh? Did it match your expectations? Let me know. And for any Slime fan that may be watching this video, also let me know in the comments if it's worth getting into the light novels and if it does address some of these pacing issues. So this is it for me today. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Ciao!